So on that subject of white supremacy, you also said something. You also said something on your show that I really loved, which is white supremacy didn't end. Black and Indigenous people of color are surviving white
Yeah,
supremacy. So can you explain to our audience like this idea of surviving white supremacy, and how does that relate to your experiences of surviving in Eugene?
I was just gonna say it's like the story of my life. Yeah, honestly, white supremacy culture, white supremacy itself. I mean, think about it. Like everything that I do, everything we do as Black women, Black people, in order to get ahead, has been to assimilate to this particular type of culture, with no assistance at all. Matter of fact, with barriers, with absolute um, conscious design to keep us in third or fourth or fifth place, not second place, but third, fourth, or fifth place. I mean, it goes all the way back to just when we talk about critical race theory, it goes the laws that were created to absolutely ensure that Black people were always going to be the fallback. We're going to be the scapegoat. We're going to be the reasoning. We're going to be how crime continued. You know what I mean? It was going to be laid on this particular type of community. So when it comes to surviving that, what happens in a Black household is paramount to the survival of Black people. So that's why the crisis of the healthcare crisis, the environmental crisis, all of these things that are external are putting more pressure on the Black household to be able to raise these children very biculturally. In the household, we're pro-Black. We're loving you. We're loving your skin. We're loving the hair. We're loving our lips. We're loving our rhythm. We're loving our intelligence. And then we have to take that in such a fierce, loving mode and put it into the world that is consistently and constantly and in a very violent way hating. And this is from our children. Remember, like, I don't know that if you've heard of my podcast, like, average child who lives in a high proximity of whiteness is called the N-word by the time they're 7 years old, right? So this is before you're spelling your name confidently. You're having to defend yourself as a person that's valuable and has the right to be anywhere. So talking about surviving that is trying to keep that person square, aligned, empowered, right? And feeling that their capability and capacity is not measured or to the same what's the word I'm looking for, level that the white supremacist culture society is insisting that it is, which is low. The expectation is very low, if there's an expectation at all. And this is when it's this high in high proximity. Living in white supremacist culture with the lack of that community is when you can come out loving yourself, you can come out strong and feeling courageous enough to speak out loud about your right to survive or to exist. That's a close to a miracle. You know what I mean? Without it being really crushing you as a person. There's people I know who walk around as adults who did not have a robust Black community or a community of color, period, to uplift them and tell them that, giving you that oxygen when you can't breathe, when people are pushing you back, or, shaking your shoulder, like, you can do it, you can do it. That's literally what's happening when you have to go to school every day and combat your teacher being racist, your friends being racist, your coach being racist, and then you have to come home, right? And then you got to get fed again, like, you're powerful, you can do it, and then you go out. That's what surviving this is. And that's every single day, right? And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, it just isn't. Every day there is, I can come home and write down what happened to me that was racist, right? And so after a while, you start to get this way of dealing with it. And that's harm. And you start to be able to say, well, this level of harm I can hold, this level of harm I can't hold. You're damaged. You see what I'm saying? And so there's people here in high proximity without the community that struggle with identity as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that identity, when they're trying to still decide what Black really is for them, because it can't be solidly and unapologetically Black, because that means trouble, right? But it can't be white because they know that that doesn't feel safe. So they have this, like, you know, maybe they were raised by white folks, maybe they just never had any other Black friends and they're the only Black people in that's a reality in the Pacific Northwest. Now, throughout the country, I've lived in several different places, several different countries, and the racism and white supremacist culture, even when you have the proximity of your own culture around, is another kind of survival. But no matter what, we out here just trying to live. You know, we're trying to make it. And I'm not even talking about like what it takes to teach your child how to survive a police interaction. We're just talking about going to school and trying to be chosen for the debate team without being tokenized. You know what I mean? So that kind of survival, I think it's important to bring it down from the movies, you know, of all the reality of what white folks really want to see as us, you know, is us, like, you know, fighting the police on the ground and bleeding and doing it and go, oh, we survived. No, coming from school and believing you're still beautiful and smart after everything that we are in just the indoctrination of inferiority, coming from the school system, coming from the grocer, coming from all the white spaces that you have to encounter, and still go back the next day believing that you are valuable. That is surviving white supremacy. And that literally is my childhood.